Barbra Streisand, the legendary voice of Hollywood, has always remained private about certain parts of her life. But now, at 80, she has finally opened up about a secret that Hollywood tried to bury for decades. What she revealed shocked even the most seasoned insiders. Let's uncover the darkest truth that was kept in silence for years, until now. The Queen of Silence. Barbra Streisand became a superstar in the 1960s. Her powerful voice, bold personality, and strong screen presence made her one of the most respected artists in the world. She won Oscars, Grammys, Emmys, you name it. But despite all the fame, Barbra always had an air of mystery. She never liked to give too many interviews. She stayed away from gossip and rarely spoke about her early days in Hollywood. What fans didn't know was that Barbra had been holding back something big, something that went beyond her personal life or artistic choices. Over the years, people started to whisper that Barbra had seen the dark side of Hollywood up close, but she never confirmed anything. Until now, when Barbra turned 80, she started looking back at her journey. She wrote a memoir, gave heartfelt interviews, and slowly started talking about what she had kept inside for so long. She said the world needed to know what really happens behind the scenes in Hollywood, the part no one sees. Her silence was not because she was afraid of anyone. It was because the time wasn't right. Barbra explained that for decades, people didn't believe women when they spoke up. And if someone powerful tried to expose the truth, they were quickly silenced or pushed out of the industry. But Barbra made it clear, she was done staying quiet. She believed that the truth could protect future generations of artists. That's why she finally decided to share what she saw and experienced. A young girl in a ruthless town. When Barbra first arrived in Hollywood, she was just a young girl with dreams. She wasn't the typical blonde beauty that studios loved. Her nose, her voice, her style, everything about her was different. But that didn't stop her. She proved her talent on stage and quickly became a sensation. Behind the glamour, though, Hollywood was a ruthless town. Young women were constantly judged, mistreated, and pressured to fit in. Producers controlled everything. Agents warned newcomers not to ask too many questions. The real power was in the hands of a few men, and they expected everyone else to obey. Barbra remembered going to meetings where she was the only woman in the room. She spoke about times when producers made comments that were deeply uncomfortable. Some tried to manipulate her, offering roles in exchange for favors. Barbra always refused, even when it meant losing opportunities. But she saw many others who weren't able to say no. Young actresses were often trapped. If they spoke up, they were blacklisted. If they stayed quiet, the abuse continued. Barbra admitted that she had to work twice as hard just to be taken seriously. And even then, she was often seen as difficult for simply standing her ground. She said it wasn't just one man or one incident. It was the entire system, a culture where women were disposable and silence was expected. The higher she climbed, the more she saw. Famous names, powerful studios, and top agents. Many were involved in protecting the guilty and silencing the victims. The night that changed everything. One evening in the early 1980s, Barbra attended a private party hosted by a major film producer. It was supposed to be a gathering of Hollywood elites, but what she witnessed there stayed with her forever. She saw things that disturbed her. Young women being pressured, powerful men laughing, and no one willing to step in. That night, Barbra made a decision. She would never attend such parties again. She also stopped working with certain producers. Her circle became smaller, and she started taking more control over her career. She directed her own films, chose her own scripts, and refused to play by Hollywood's old rules. But avoiding the darkness didn't erase it. The same producer she saw at that party later faced accusations from other women, but nothing ever came of it. Barbra said that was the moment she realized how deeply rooted the problem was. People in Hollywood protected each other, not the victims. She tried to speak out through her work. Her films started to include strong female leads, powerful messages, and scenes that reflected the truth about women's struggles. But even then, she had to fight studio executives who wanted her to tone it down. Years passed, and Barbra remained one of the few women in Hollywood with real power. Yet the darker side of the industry still haunted her. She met actresses who had their careers ruined for speaking out. She met crew members who were forced to stay silent about what they saw. As Barbra aged, she started to notice something surprising. There were other stars like her, silent witnesses who had kept their stories hidden. They formed a quiet network, checking in on each other, supporting those who had suffered in silence. It wasn't an official group. No one talked about it publicly, but they knew who they could trust. Barbra said she often received calls from young actresses who were afraid, confused, and unsure who to turn to. She gave them advice, introduced them to lawyers, and helped them find safe spaces. She said one of the hardest things was watching promising talents disappear from the spotlight. Not because they lacked skill, but because they had been broken by the industry. Barbra felt responsible, even though she wasn't the one hurting them. She had seen the problem and stayed quiet for too long. One of her biggest regrets was not speaking out earlier, but she explained that in those days, no one would have believed her. Even now, with all the movements and support, many victims still face threats and backlash. Barbra's silence wasn't weakness. It was survival. But now, with age and wisdom, she knew her voice could make it the memoir revelation. In her 80th year, Barbra published her memoir. Fans expected stories about her songs, her marriages, her movies. But buried deep inside the book was a chapter titled, What I Saw. In it, she described the pain, the silence, and the secrets that Hollywood tried to hide. She didn't name names directly, but anyone who knew the industry could guess who she was talking about. The chapter sent shockwaves through Hollywood. People started digging. Old stories resurfaced. Some denied everything. Others stayed quiet, afraid the truth was finally catching up. Barbra wasn't afraid. She said she had nothing left to lose. She had already achieved everything she wanted. Now she wanted justice, not just for herself, but for all the women whose dreams had been destroyed. She appeared on major talk shows, gave bold interviews, and stood by every word she wrote. Her calm, confident voice made it impossible to ignore her. Even those who once tried to silence her now praised her bravery. Younger stars thanked her publicly. They said her truth gave them the courage to speak up too. And slowly, a new wave of honesty began to rise in the entertainment world. Barbra knew the battle wasn't over, but she had started something important, something that couldn't be stopped anymore. The legacy of truth. Today, Barbra Streisand is more than just a music legend or film icon. She is a symbol of truth and courage. Her decision to speak out at 80 proved that it's never too late to tell your story. She inspired a new generation of artists to fight for fairness, respect, and dignity. She showed the world that silence can be broken, and when it is, healing can begin. Barbra's story is not just about pain. It's about strength. It's about surviving a system that was built to break people and using your power to build something better instead. She continues to support organizations that protect women in the film industry. She funds scholarships, mentors young talent, and advocates for safer working environments. Her influence is everywhere, not just in awards and records, but in real, lasting change.